What's up YouTube? Welcome to HarethHphotography, and today we're going to be reviewing the Pentax KX, perhaps the best beginning to intermediate photographer DSLR to buy. Now, I can pretty much say that you won't find a better fully loaded camera for this price budget, which you can find online for $400 to $550 to $600. It comes with the 18 to 55 kit lens, and its f-stop is 3.5 to 5.6, so that's usually the standard kit lens for just about any DSLR because it's very versatile. Usually what happens is the 18 millimeter is usually for the wide angle shots, kind of. You'll see more in the picture you take. And 55 is more up close. It's better for generally like portraits and things like that. Usually you want to upgrade your kit lens to a larger aperture setting. So lower than 3.5, maybe a 2.8 would be ideal. Actually, there's no ideal. Like, you can get even higher and higher if you can get like a 1.4, but that'll cost you a lot of money. We'll get into the aperture and how to read lenses in a further tutorial. This camera has a 2.4 CMOS sensor built into it, so that's 12.4 megapixels. Generally, you don't want to worry about megapixels too much because the camera can take pictures only as good as its lens. So if you get a better lens, if you have a 7 megapixel camera and you have an amazing lens, you're going to take some pretty badass looking pictures. Now, the back of this camera, you can see, has a 3-inch LCD screen, so it's nice and large, and the LCD screen also, you can look at live view from there. So this is an example of live view. Basically, you can see whatever the camera is seeing. Now, live view sadly takes up away a lot of battery, but it's still functional and it works perfectly. Now, with the live view, it also has face detection for the newer photographers, just so the camera can autofocus into faces and have everything in the picture. Now, the camera is quite light, especially for what it can do. It's 18.2 ounces without the battery or the memory card, and with the memory card and the battery, it's 20.5 ounces. The DSLR is made of fiber reinforced plastic, which is actually better than it sounds. It's nice and durable, and it's nice and light. If you travel around with your camera, you'll see that comes into play. It won't be as tiring to take pictures and constantly having to lift up and shoot. Believe me, it comes into play later, especially with a bigger lens, you'll notice. Now, the chassis of the body is stainless steel. It's obviously not fully plastic that way. That wouldn't really hold up the camera too well. Now, on the top here, you see several different picture modes. Auto picture mode, basically, it means that it sets the exposure to what your camera feels like it should set it to. This is portrait, landscape, macro, sports photography, nighttime, and no flash. I will be going over manual up to program settings in a further tutorial. Part of the reason I like this camera is because of its built-in post-processing system. If you are an amateur to maybe intermediate, you want to stick to editing your pictures inside your camera, this camera has an amazing photo editing kind of software built into it. Now, if you are looking to get more professional results, you would want to go and buy maybe Adobe Lightroom 3 or Photoshop, depending on what your needs are, and for Max you would use iPhoto. Another amazing thing about this camera is that it can take 4.7 shots per second, and its shutter speed can go up to 1 6,000th of a second, so that's really fast. Keep in mind, while I'm holding the shutter trigger down, it's constantly taking pictures. So ready? 3, 2, 1. As you can see, it's quite fast. A great thing about this camera is its autofocusing system. It has 11 points, unlike the usual 9 or even lower standard autofocusing systems. Now, autofocusing points, basically, if you think about it, say one point is in the middle of the screen, one is right here, one is here, one is up, and one is down. So that'd be a 5-point focusing system. And for the camera to autofocus correctly, it would have to be in one of those points. Now, with 11 points, for the amateur photographer, it's really easy for the camera to autofocus onto especially sports or other fast-moving objects. A downside, or an upside depending on how you look at it, is that this camera uses 4 AA batteries. Now, most people are gonna already maybe not consider this camera now just because it carries 4 AA batteries, but let me tell you, it's really useful. There's been times where I have used my other camera
over here, the Canon XSI, and there are points where I just run out of battery and I can't really do much about it because it runs on Canon's rechargeable battery. And with this, I can be anywhere, and AA's are pretty much universal and you can pretty much find them anywhere. Now, some cool things to note about the Pentax KX. The Pentax KX has built-in shake reduction. Now, usually for most cameras, the shake reduction is built into the lens. Now, the cool thing is that since the shake reduction is built into the camera, I can pretty much use any lens, even the old Pentax lens from the 70s or 80s, and it'll work fine with shake reduction. Now, since this camera can record 720p movies and videos, that's very useful. Sadly, the shake reduction does make noise inside the video, so that we'll go over later as well. The Pentax does come with a hot shoe mount for external flashes. Sadly, the Pentax KX does not come with an external mic output, so you can't have your own little mic while recording a video, and the mic here isn't the best, but it does get by, I promise you. Also, another cool thing about the Pentax brand in general, especially the Pentax KX here, is that it can use any Pentax lens ever made. So usually things like Canons and Nikons, they have Canons and Nikons are the big brands, and then it kind of separates into different little categories, and they can only usually use those lenses and other third-party lenses. But the Pentax, it can use any Pentax lens ever made and third-party lenses. So the final verdict of the Pentax KX is that it's probably the best beginning to intermediate photography camera. Now, it's perhaps one of the best DSLRs. Actually, I think it was voted the #1 beginner DSLR in Europe. So I would definitely look into it. Now remember, you don't want to buy a DSLR just because of how good it performs. You want to make sure you go and like it. You want to go there and personally see it. You want to feel the ergonomics, how it fits into your hand, if you like the way it personally looks. Now, because if your DSLR takes amazing pictures but you don't really like it, there's no point of buying it. So make sure you go to your nearest camera store and pick one of these up and see how it feels in your hand. So thank you for watching the Pentax KX overview/review. The Pentax KX is probably the best DSLR that provides bang for the buck. For a budget camera, this performs ×2 of the budget camera category. For a beginner camera, I would give this camera a 9.5, simply because some of the downsides, like the AA battery, and Pentax could have worked a little bit better on the shake reduction and the image stabilization built into the camera. Stay tuned for future reviews, tips, and tutorials on how to take amazing pictures. In the future, I'll be reviewing my Canon XSI with its lens, and I have a couple of other lenses I can review, and I will also show you pretty much get the definitions and summarize it for the beginner about definitions like ISO, average setting, shutter priority, shutter speed, and everything like that. So